out and would say, "Yeah, I'm gonna do this fight. Yeah, I want to do this fight with Terence Crawford." Absolutely wish he would have done that. However, when you're walking with Ellie Setback asking you questions and you're walking and leaving the arena and clearly leaving the arena so he can beat the crowd, that's what it looked like to me. It looked like he looked up at the board.
Those are the words of Fanon. And as promised, I would take a look at the video on what he was saying about Errol Spence and the reason Errol Spence left. And as you heard Fanon say the reason he left, he didn't want to get mobbed by the fans, and he wanted to beat the crowd. First off, when a fighter wants a fight, okay? And Errol Spence, like he said, I wish Errol Spence would have called him out. I wish Errol Spence would have said anything regarding Terence Crawford, that he wanted to fight Terence Crawford. But yeah, I wish he would have too, Fanon, but he didn't. And the words he replied with, "I don't know, we'll see," or "I don't give a fuck," that doesn't tell me that he wants to fight. However, let me counterpunch. Has Errol Spence ever said he wanted to fight any fighter? Yes. He has called out Keith Thurman. He has called out Canelo Alvarez. He's called out Gennady Golovkin. He's made it clear verbally that he wanted these fights. So why didn't he call out Terence Crawford? I mean, he called out the other ones. It would be different if Errol Spence didn't call out fighters. Then it would make sense. Well, he doesn't call out anybody. But he clearly called out the fighters that I just mentioned. So how is that hard to understand that this man didn't call these fighters, call a particular fighter out and call out other fighters? What does that tell you? He doesn't want to fight Terence Crawford. So him saying, well, I think he just did that to beat the crowd, that could be true. I mean, he could have done that. But then again, if you want a fighter to call another fighter out and then they leave the arena quick like he did, how are we going to know that Errol Spence wanted to fight or wants to fight with Terence Crawford when he doesn't verbally say anything? And when he responds, when everyone asks him, it's a very short answer, just like he told Ellie Setback, right? And others that, and it wasn't exciting. He wasn't excited about any of that. He wasn't crunk to fight Terence Crawford at that point. He was disgusted. He was disappointed. Okay? And we covered a lot of that on my live yesterday. And he was disgusted, utterly disgusted. All right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move forward with what Fanon has to say further in his video. And then first of all, the video is Terence Crawford refuses the Errol Spence fight. Says, I don't need him or Top Rank. Well, to counterpunch that right now, that's true. I mean, Terence Crawford doesn't need Errol Spence to do what? Because basically at the end of the day, he beat Kell Brook. He beat Sean Porter, stopped him, retired Sean Porter. What else could he do? That's right. He could beat everybody else that is fed to him. And Terence Crawford himself said, hey, yeah, I could go to 154, and we all know people. So let's stop acting like Terence Crawford hasn't done anything in effort to fight Errol Spence. He petitioned to the WBC to make a mandatory for the Errol Spence fight before the fight with Porter. Okay, this ain't something that he just done. So a lot of people need to get their facts straight when we're talking about, guys like Fanon, which obviously he hides it well, but, he doesn't care for pretty much Top Rank. He doesn't care for Terence Crawford, really, because he was with Top Rank. And I would want to see if he does decide to do business and fight on a PBC card, would he change his story about Terence Crawford? More than likely, no, because when when you're in certain groups, you pick sides or whatnot. But anyway, let's move forward.
The fight was over, and he said, "Come on, let's go," because he didn't want to get caught up in a crowd, in a large crowd. He's down there in front seat. I do that myself all the time. When there's going to be a big crowd of people, and I would think it would be doubly so with somebody like Errol Spence, who knows after the fight he's going to get mobbed by a lot of people, just to get up and leave before you have to try to get out of there with even more people outside the arena standing between you and your car, sticking cameras in your face, right? So that's what it looked like to me. ESPN, however, man, they do too much. However, they said that when they act like, they pretty much acted like Errol Spence Jr. ran out of the place. Like, where you going? Well, yeah, I see you ran out of here because you didn't want to see, because you're scared of Terence Crawford. I'd run out too. Man, that cornball stuff. If he was scared of if he didn't want to look Terence Crawford in the face, he wouldn't have showed up to the fight.
Okay. If he didn't want to look Terence Crawford in the face, he wouldn't have showed up to the fight. You don't have to look anybody in the face just for showing up at the fight. However, we did know what Errol Spence said. He said, I wouldn't come to a Terence Crawford fight, but he came anyway. He came because he wanted to see Sean Porter and hoping Sean Porter would beat Terence Crawford, so Terence Crawford won't be a problem for him anymore. And since that didn't happen, what did he do? He got pissed off and he left. So Errol Spence didn't have any intention of looking Terence Crawford in the face, having a showdown, or any type of confrontation with Terence Crawford by doing exactly what he did. Because, see, even if he wanted to beat the crowd, that's a lame cop-out, though. Let's be real. Because if you have something important you need to tell somebody concerning fighting that person, why would you be trying to beat to you? You think getting to your car or your vehicle is more important than addressing to this man that just stopped the man that I beat? One of the top guys or the top wins on my resume, and this guy just stopped at something I couldn't do? I mean, we have to really think about this, and I'm tired of people trying to, like Fanon, trying to defend Errol Spence like, oh well, if he didn't want to see the man in his face, he wouldn't have showed up at the fight. First of all, he wasn't even in the front seat. It's almost like he ghosted himself. I didn't know he was there. Now, that could have been because of ESPN not giving him coverage or whatnot, but they did show he was there after Terence Crawford, of course, stopped Sean Porter, because that is now the focus point. Oh, the other champion in the welterweight division, the same division. What are you going to do? What are you going to say? Errol Spence could have done that. And then if you notice, Errol Spence has been on a DAZN card. He was at the Billy Joe Saunders fight. I don't think he was at the Caleb Plant fight, but I know he was at the Billy Joe Saunders fight and another fight of Canelo's. And he was there. And he was doing interviews with DAZN and everybody else. So you couldn't do one with ESPN. So again, if he wanted to show his face, or if he wanted to look him eye to eye or whatever, or get that smoke, he would have done exactly what he did in other venues with other fighters. Let's continue.
To me, that doesn't make any sense, because everybody knew Terence Crawford was going to win the fight. Errol's not stupid. Neither is anybody else. The man was a plus 700. He's a plus 700 favorite.
Well, that's bullshit, because obviously not everybody thought that Terence Crawford was going to win, especially the people that didn't like Terence Crawford. They was hoping he lost. Again, that's why Errol Spence showed up, because he was interested to see how this fight was going to play out. How this guy from Omaha, Nebraska was going to take on one of the PBC elite. That's why he showed up. He was showing up to wish the downfall of Terence Crawford. That's why he showed up.
To beat Sean Porter, man. Look, I've been said that Sean Porter, that is a good fight for Terence Crawford. That is his first real big fight against a guy that you know is coming to win, that has had a lot of experience in the ring with other fighters and all that. But it's still what it is. Terence Crawford's the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and I've been saying that. Don't anybody act like you Terence Crawford fans are funny. I appreciate you listening to the video, man. It is possible to give Terence Crawford a lot of credit and still think he's going to lose to Errol Spence Jr. or give Terence Crawford a lot of credit, but then still point out certain things that he does that, to me personally, don't make sense for somebody that is trying to prove that he's a great fighter. For when Terence Crawford says that he doesn't need the Errol Spence Jr. fight, he doesn't care about the Errol Spence Jr. fight, he's past the Errol Spence Jr. fight. To me, as a boxing fan, that sounds like, or a reasonable human being, sounds like he doesn't want the fight. Right now, that may.
Okay, well, again, I think this is going in circles. I think Fanon is trying to point out, well, because Terence Crawford's saying I don't need the fight, that he doesn't want the fight. Those are two different things. Now, if you petition to the sanctioning body to mandate a fight with the champion of that sanctioning body, which is the WBC, again, how can you say that he doesn't want the fight? It's crazy. I mean, because obviously he's talked to Errol Spence face to face, eye to eye, with Bob Arum sitting there. He has called out Errol Spence. Errol Spence responded, "You light in the ass, I'm gonna crush you." Well, he's like, "Well, fight me. You the boogeyman. You call yourself the boogeyman. How are you the boogeyman if I'm chasing you?" See, we never heard Errol Spence. Errol Spence has showed that same energy towards another fighter, Keith Thurman. It's like people picking their battles, basically. And Terence Crawford saying that I don't need him is the reason. He's saying that because he's tired of chasing him. That's simple. Why would you chase a man that clearly doesn't want to fight? Okay, so he would rather fight Manny Pacquiao. To be fair, they both wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao, but Terence Crawford, I feel, should have had that opportunity long before. Errol Spence, I don't think, deserved that opportunity to fight someone like that. I don't. The reason why I don't is because he's the clear favorite, and that fight is being made because of that fact. Al Heyman knew, well, look, I want to give the torch to Errol Spence. Terence Crawford wanted that same torch. Okay? But what ended up happening, none of those guys had it, which is okay with me. They gave it to Ugas, the opportunity. Okay? Truth is stranger than fiction, people. Sometimes things happen for certain reasons. So, but to close this out on Fanon, I think Fanon has an agenda. I think he always has. Now, he did give Terence Crawford credit for being the #1 fighter, but that doesn't mean that that's your fighter that you back. And he's not backing Terence Crawford. And he's saying he refuses to fight because he says he doesn't need him. Okay, we already talked about that. But this is what we have. We have guys like Fanon, pushing the agenda that Terence Crawford doesn't want the fight, when Errol Spence walked out of the place where Terence Crawford just knocked out Sean Porter. So if you walk away from a confrontation or a possible confrontation, right, who doesn't want what? But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of this counterpunching video with Fanon and Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.